Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the Electoral College and the process of the people, the power of the people in electing the President of the United States. In the Constitutional Convention, when they made the Constitution, the question was like, how do you create a chief executive that is not like a king? And how do you actually create that process? And they do so they reference this in the 12th Amendment, which was brought up with the original Bill of Rights, and create an electoral college. So we're going to create this thing that this process that is democratic in principle, but also make sure that the popular vote is checked or balanced by essentially members of government, that it's not ruled by the mob, essentially. Okay. Now, a little background. First of all, why the Electoral College? And the main thing is because direct popular elections held by a national government are fraught with problems. You're going to have too much that the US government, the national government, doesn't have to spread out and oversee. And it's actually much more likely to have fraud than having your states hold their elections on the same time, but the states actually oversee the elections because they're closer to the action. And actually, in states, counties oversee the elections. The counties actually do the counting. The counties actually do the certification. And in the end, the counties do the certification, then the states certify the counties, then the national government certifies the states. It's not certifying hundreds of millions of votes. So on election day, what in these 50 states, elections are held. Now, this is the only map that actually matters. This is a map of what is known as the Electoral College. There are 538 votes that are up for grabs here, and that equals the total member that each state has in Congress plus Washington, D.C., which gets 3 electoral votes. So if you're here in North Dakota, you have 3 electoral votes: 2 Senate, 1 House seat. Boom, that's 3. Here in California, you have 54 electoral votes: 2 Senate, 52 House seats equals 54 electoral votes. Okay, so this equals the number of seats you actually have in Congress. At the end of the night, the only number that matters is 270. 270 electoral votes must be reached for your candidate to become president. So you can look at the map, look at it good and hard, and what you're going to start noticing is that if your candidate can roll up any of these states, then bang, guess what? That candidate is going to be president. Okay. Here is an example. We have the Bush versus Gore election. One thing I want you to notice here: Al Gore got over 500,000 more votes in the popular vote. But remember, we're not winning national voting totals here. Each independent state, whoever wins that state gets these electoral votes. So in California, the Democrats won, therefore the 54 votes go to the Democratic candidate. In Texas, the Republicans won, therefore the 32 electoral votes go to the Republican candidate. This number right here, that popular vote, is irrelevant. What is relevant is who can win the states. So the candidates are trying to win each state separately, not think about it as a big national style election. So when you look at 2024 and you have some swing states here, the question isn't nationally is one more popular than the other. It's more like in certain states, who is more popular, because you want these swing states right here. Okay. That's what you need. And you need it all to add up to 270 electoral votes. So what happens is, on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November every 4 years, we vote for president. Actually, we vote for the electors to be president. So after the state holds their election, whoever wins chooses their electors, and you get the number of electors that is equal to the electoral votes in your state. Who is an elector? Basically, an elector is somebody who's loyal to the party, or somebody that donated big or did something big for the party. This is Ian Blue and his sister Leah Blue. Ian is a Ukiah High School graduate, 2006. He went to UC Santa Barbara, where he became the president of the Young Democrats. And then he started to campaign around the country, knocking on doors for Barack Obama. His reward by, at the time, Congressman Mike Thompson, which Ukiah was in his district, he rewarded Ian Blue by making him an elector. So he would go cast in Sacramento, the state capital, the electoral vote, the official vote for president. Okay. So What it says is the electoral vote, state to state, every December, the electors go to the state capitol and they vote with the will of the people from the state they represent, depending on state law. Now, the state doesn't say anything. That elector actually can vote for anyone they want to. And in 87 times, 87 electors throughout the course of US history have voted for somebody different. Ian Blue did not. He voted for Barack Obama and Joe Biden when he got up here on the lectern and cast his official electoral vote. The people that don't vote for the will of the people in the state are known as faithless electors. And again, 87 times in history, and never have faithless electors voted for somebody from the other party. It's always been somebody from the same party. Prime example, here's the 2016 electoral count. Trump got 304, Clinton got 227. Trump wins the election, but there were a variety of, you know, faithless electors. Three people that were Republicans voted for Colin Powell. Bernie Sanders got one vote from the Democrats. Kasich and Paul both got one vote from Republican electors, and Faith Spotted Eagle got a vote from a Democratic elector. Now, I don't know who Faith Spotted Eagle is. I believe she is a chiefess of a tribe in Washington State, but there's nothing legally in Washington at that time that said you had to cast the elector had to cast the vote of the will of the people. Okay? Some of those laws have now changed to where you are required, or you can actually be removed from that spot if you go against the will of the people. So mid-January, the state capitals, all the electors cast their official vote. It is certified by the state government. Then Congress gets those electoral votes, and that is certified in a joint session of Congress on January the 6th, which is why the people that rushed the Capitol were trying to storm the Capitol to stop the certification of those electoral votes. They were trying to stop a free and fair election and the certification of the votes from the states from actually happening. Okay. So if there's a tie in the Electoral College, and mathematically it is possible to actually tie, then the House of Representatives gets to elect the president. Each state gets one vote in the House of Representatives. So remember, on election night, the only vote that matters is these numbers in here, the total seats of Congress of each state, and your candidate needs to get 270 of those electoral votes to win. Now, a couple things about voting. Number one, if you hear the term suffrage or franchise, that is simply the right to vote. That's it. It means that you have the right to vote. So if you're trying to gain franchise or you're fighting for suffrage, you're trying to fight for the right to vote. Now, when the colonies first started, the only people that cast a vote were white, male, Christian property owners. Those are the only people that were allowed to vote in elections. That has changed over time. Okay. So let's take a look at some of the changes. Number one, you didn't have to be Christian as of 1810. By the 1840s, they got rid of property requirements. By 1870, the 15th Amendment was passed, which you couldn't discriminate based on race. By 1920, the 19th Amendment couldn't discriminate based on gender. 1961, the 23rd Amendment gave DC people the right to vote. The 24th, you couldn't have a poll tax. Okay, poll taxes were not allowed, and a poll tax was basically paying a tax to vote. Or they actually had literacy tests too that some people were required to vote. And then finally, 18 years and older were able to vote as per the 26th Amendment, the quickest amendment ever to pass, by the way, at just 90 days. A couple things about the act of voting. Usual universal requirements: you have to be a citizen of the United States. Constitution actually doesn't mention anything about voting, and of course, to be a citizen, you must have been born or naturalized, meaning you went through the legal process. But it does guarantee equal protection under the law, and the laws usually will say that you can vote. Residency in these states it's 1 to 2 years usually, and you must be a resident in those states to be able to vote. And then you cannot have an age limit higher than the age of 18. Some states allow for certain elections of people younger in like 16 to vote for some elections. California not being necessarily one of them. A lot of people use these things like citizenship about the concern illegal immigrants are coming to this country and they're going to vote, and they're going to vote for Democrats or Republicans or whatever. There is really no evidence that illegal immigrants have ever voted fraudulently in a in any kind of meaningful way ever in a modern US election. Registration is the procedure of voter ID to prevent fraudulent voting. Came out of the early 1900s. It means you actually have to go apply to vote. All states have some form of registration except for the state of North Dakota, which allows you to go right in and vote. And then a place like California has what's called motor voter. When you sign up for a driver's license, you can automatically you are registered to vote in the state. If you are, by the way, in the state of California, make sure that you re-register every time you either move or you change your political party. Are photo IDs required? It depends on the state you're in. In 18 states, you need a driver's license, passport, or military ID. There's some constitutional issues about that, because if you require somebody to pay for an ID, then that could break the 26 or the 24th Amendment about no poll taxes. Student IDs are sometimes allowed. IDs from other states are sometimes allowed. Naturalization documents sometimes allowed, and tribal IDs are sometimes allowed, depending on the state. In California, you do not need an ID to vote. Finally, people that are denied the right to vote. And it, again, depends on the state because the states do the laws. If you're in a mental institution, you are not eligible to vote. If you are a felon in 48 states, you are not able to vote. If you have been dishonorably discharged, that could be included. However, states like Maine and Vermont actually will bring the vote to you, and you are allowed to vote actually right from prison. Right. So that's the process of not only voting but voting for the president of the United States.